The night my sister died, the world lost its color. For 5 years I've lived inside that faded version of reality, where everything is familiar but hollow, like an echo of what life used to be. I read, I drink tea, I breathe, but it all feels like a rehearsal for something that never comes. That's why I noticed the change. It was small, almost laughably small. The tree outside my window. Yesterday it was a willow. Today, it's an oak. Same balcony, same street, same rusted cars parked below. Only the tree had changed, as if the world had blinked and forgotten what it was. And then, the books on my shelf. Alphabetized. I hate alphabetizing. I never would have done that. That was the night I began writing, because either I was losing my mind, or the world had decided to stop being singular. The night my sister died, the world lost its color. I've told myself over and over that grief is just memory refusing to let go. That when we cling to what's gone, we see shadows where there is only light. But 5 years after Mara's accident, the shadows never left. Life became a script I was forced to read aloud, one day at a time. I worked at the library, reshelving books that smelled of dust and disuse. I drank tea I couldn't taste. I walked home through streets I'd memorized long ago. If people smiled at me, I returned the smile because that's what was expected. Inside, I felt like a ghost rehearsing human movements. That's why I noticed the change. It was almost nothing. A tree outside my apartment window stood the willow. Or at least it always had. Long, drooping branches like strands of hair brushing against my balcony railing, whispering against the glass when the wind picked up. A constant companion in the silence of my nights. But that morning, when I woke and pushed aside the curtains, the willow was gone. In its place stood an oak, broad, strong-limbed leaves shivering in the breeze. I froze, one hand still clutching the curtain, my breath caught. My mind searched frantically for an explanation. I'd lived in this apartment for 4 years. I had photographs. The tree was always there. I remembered leaning out on summer nights, flicking ash from my cigarette, watching fireflies dance in its shadows. Now it was gone. I didn't scream. I didn't even curse. I just stood there, staring at that impossibility. And then, I noticed something else. My bookshelf. The books were arranged in perfect alphabetical order. Titles and authors aligned like soldiers. Neat. Precise. I would never do that. I stacked my books by color, by mood, by whim. The alphabet had no place in my world. Yet here it was, crisp and deliberate. I pulled one free, A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. My copy. The one with coffee stains along the bottom edge from nights Mara and I had stayed up too late reading aloud. The stains were still there but fainter, as if someone had tried to wash them away. My hands trembled.
This wasn't my home. It looked like mine. It smelled like mine. But it wasn't. I sat down at my kitchen table, opened my journal, and began to write. Day 1. Something is wrong. The tree outside is no longer a willow, it's an oak. My books are alphabetized. Coffee stains on Wrinkle in Time are faded. The act of writing steadied me. Knowledge, I told myself, is a weapon. If I wrote everything down, I would be able to track it, measure it, prove it. But the words felt brittle, as if they belonged in someone else's hand. That night, I dreamed of Mara. She stood at the foot of my bed, her dark hair falling across her face just as it had the last time I saw her. But instead of sadness, her eyes held a strange, distant light. Pay attention, she said softly. You're not where you think you are. I woke with a start, heart racing, the dream still echoing in my ears. For a moment, I thought I heard the branches of the willow scratching the balcony. But when I rushed to the window,
the oak's heavy leaves were all that met me. It wasn't a dream. Not really. The world had rippled, and I was caught in its wake. The changes didn't stop. At first, I thought maybe I was losing my mind. Maybe grief had cracked something open inside me, and I was slipping into delusion. That's what I told myself on the second morning, when I went to make tea and found a different brand of leaves in the cupboard. One I'd never bought, but sealed and waiting as if I had. By the fourth morning, I had 22 pages of notes. Day 2, kitchen light fixture changed. Round, not square. Cupboard contains Red Sun Jasmine tea. Brand doesn't exist online. Day 3, photograph on desk. Mara's graduation picture. In this version, she's wearing a red sash, not blue. I remember blue. Always blue. Day 4. Grocery store clerk greeted me by name. I've never spoken to him before. Each entry felt like proof and madness in equal measure. The details stacked up until they were undeniable. The world was bending, shifting, peeling back layers of itself like onion skin. Every day I woke up to a slightly altered reality, and then the bigger shifts began. On the 5th night, I went to bed in my apartment. Familiar walls, my notes stacked neatly on the nightstand. When I woke, the room around me was wrong. The wallpaper was peeling floral print, not paint. The bed was smaller. The window overlooked a city skyline, not the quiet row of houses I'd lived beside for years. I staggered out of bed, heart pounding, and opened the closet. The clothes weren't mine. They were close, similar cuts, similar colors. But the brands, the textures, the stitching were all just a little off. I wanted to scream. Instead, I laughed, wild, broken laughter, the sound of someone who'd already gone too far to turn back. If this was madness, it was precise, too precise. That was when I began to theorize. I drew diagrams in my journal, branching lines like rivers splitting into tributaries. I wrote equations I half remembered from physics courses about probability waves and collapsing states. The world wasn't breaking, it was multiplying. Every choice, every possibility splintering into its own reality, and somehow I was being dragged between them. But why me? That question burned inside me as the days bled together, each morning a new test of what had stayed the same and what had changed. The cruelest shift happened on the 7th day. I walked into the library expecting the same rows of shelves, the familiar musty air. Instead, I found her. Mara. She was standing at the checkout desk, hair tucked behind her ear, laughing at something a coworker said. My Mara. Alive, breathing, moving. I couldn't move. My body turned to stone as I stared at her, my throat tightening until I thought I would choke. She looked up. Our eyes met. For one agonizing heartbeat, I thought she recognized me. But her gaze slid past me, casual, unknowing. She returned to her work without hesitation, as if I were just another stranger. I fled before I could shatter completely. That night, I wrote furiously in my journal, ink smudging beneath my hand. Day 7. Mara exists here. She's alive. But she doesn't know me. Each world contains versions of us, shaped by different choices. I am seeing infinite mirrors, but none of them are truly mine. I closed the book and pressed my forehead against its cover, breathing hard. It should have given me hope, proof that somewhere Mara lived, but all it did was hollow me out. Because none of those sisters were mine, and none of those worlds were home. By the 10th day, I had stopped pretending this was normal. I kept my journal close, writing in frantic bursts whenever something shifted. But more and more, I noticed something I couldn't explain in words. A presence, like a ripple in the corner of my vision. A shadow that lingered just a little too long when I turned my head. Someone, or something, was watching me. The first time it happened was in the market. I was comparing prices of apples. Granny Smith, Pink Lady Fuji, the labels changing each day as if the universe couldn't make up its mind, when I felt it. A prickling across my skin, the sensation of eyes fixed on me. I turned. At the far end of the aisle stood a man in a gray coat, face half hidden by the collar. He didn't move. He didn't even pretend to browse. He just watched. I blinked and he was gone. I told myself it was stress paranoia, a mind unraveling, but the feeling returned again and again. On the bus, passing a cafe window, always the same. Someone just at the edge of sight, vanishing the moment I looked directly. On the 12th day, it stopped being subtle. I woke in a city I didn't recognize. Towering glass buildings, humming drones overhead, the air sharp with ozone. My journal was still with me, but the pages were wrong. My handwriting, but filled with notes I didn't remember writing. Equations, sketches of machines, cryptic warnings. One phrase repeated over and over. You are not alone. I barely had time to process before the knock came at my door. 3 quick raps, firm, deliberate. My chest tightened. I shouldn't answer. But my feet moved anyway, carrying me to the door. I opened it. The man in the gray coat stood there, closer than ever before. His face was ordinary, forgettable, but his eyes were too sharp, like blades catching the light. "You've lasted longer than most," he said, voice low. "Good. That means you might survive." I couldn't speak. He glanced past me into the apartment, scanning the mismatched furniture as if cataloging it. Then his gaze settled on my journal, lying open on the table. "They've noticed you," he said. "That's why you're slipping more often. The universes are converging around you." "Who are you?" My voice came out hoarse. "A traveler," he said simply. "Like you." My blood ran cold. "There are others?" His expression flickered. Weariness, bitterness, maybe even pity. "Hundreds, maybe thousands. Most don't last long. Some go mad. Some disappear." He leaned closer. "But a few of us survive. We've banded together. We call ourselves the Wanderers." I gripped the doorframe to steady myself. My head was spinning. "Why is this happening to me?" He shook his head. "No one knows. Some think it's chance. Others think we're chosen. But every traveler learns the same truth. There's an anchor, a universe where all the fractures meet. Find it, and you might stop shifting. Lose it, and you'll keep falling forever." His eyes locked on mine. "You'll have to choose a side soon. Stay alone and drown, or find us before it's too late." And then, like a glitch in reality, he was gone. One blink, and the space where he stood was empty. I stumbled back, slamming the door shut, heart hammering so loud I thought the walls would shake. The Wanderers, an anchor, a choice. I picked up my journal, hand trembling as I wrote his words down. But when I turned the page, I froze. There, in my own handwriting, were 3 words I had not written. "They're already here." The shifts grew violent. Before, I would wake to subtle differences. A new tea brand, a changed skyline, a stranger's face familiar when it shouldn't be. Now I felt the world tearing around me. I would be walking down the street when the air would flicker and the buildings would smear like wet paint, dissolving into shapes that weren't finished. For seconds at a time, I existed between worlds, standing on a corner where one universe showed me a neon-lit megacity, and the next showed me a quiet village under rain. Sometimes the two overlapped, bodies of strangers passing through me like smoke, their voices echoing in languages I didn't know. It felt like drowning in possibility. I wasn't the only one. On the 17th day, I saw another traveler collapse in the middle of the street. A woman with gray hair and eyes wide with terror, clutching her chest as the world flickered violently around her. One moment she was there, the next she was gone, erased mid-scream. No one else reacted. To the people around me, she had never existed. That night, I tore through my journal, page after page of desperate scribbles, trying to find a pattern. Why me? Why now? I fell asleep at the desk, forehead pressed against the ink-stained paper, and dreamed of Mara. Not the Mara who ignored me in the library, not the memory of my sister who died, but Mara as I remembered her, alive, warm, her laughter bubbling like a song. "Elara," she whispered. Her hand brushed my cheek, real and solid. "You're not supposed to be here." I woke with tears wetting my face. And then I heard her voice again, not in my dream, in my apartment. I staggered into the living room, half believing I was still asleep, and there she was, Mara, sitting on the couch, legs curled beneath her, as if she had always lived here. Her eyes lit up the moment she saw me. "Finally," she breathed. "You made it." My knees almost gave out. "Mara?" She crossed the room and wrapped her arms around me, holding me so tightly it hurt. "I've been waiting for you. In every world, I hoped, I prayed." Her voice broke. "And here you are." I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just clung to her, terrified that if I let go, she would vanish like the others. But she didn't. She was warm, solid, real. And when she pulled back, her eyes burned with recognition. Not the distant, unknowing gaze of the Mara from the library. This Mara knew me, remembered me. "How?" I whispered. "Because this world is breaking," she said softly. "The walls are thin. I can remember more than just myself. And so can you." She touched my forehead gently. "That's why it's happening to you. You're a keystone. The universes are converging on you, Elara. They can't hold without you." Her words spun inside me, too heavy to grasp. "That doesn't make sense. I'm no one. I shelve books. I drink tea. She shook her head, eyes fierce. "You're more than you think. That's why the Wanderers are looking for you, and why others will try to stop you." "Others?" Her expression darkened. "You felt them. The shadows at the edge of your vision. They want the anchor destroyed. If they succeed, everything collapses." I staggered back, chest tight. "Mara, I don't understand any of this." She stepped closer, gripping my hands. "You don't need to yet. Just promise me you'll survive long enough to reach the anchor." Her eyes shimmered with the same fierce love I remembered from my childhood. The way she used to hold me when I woke from nightmares, telling me the world was bigger than my fears. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to fall into her arms and never let go. But before I could answer, the air in the room ripped open. A jagged crack of light split the ceiling, spilling darkness like ink. The walls groaned. The floor shuddered.
Mara's face went pale. "They found you." The last thing I heard was her scream as the world shattered like glass. And then, nothing. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't anywhere at all. Not a city, not a room, not even a sky. I stood on a flat plain of white, stretching endlessly in all directions. The air hummed like a string pulled taut. My body felt heavier and lighter at the same time, as if gravity couldn't decide what to do with me. I clutched my journal, the only anchor I had left. And then I saw them. Dozens of figures scattered across the plain, gathering like pilgrims. Some stood alone, dazed and frightened. Others clustered in groups, muttering, arguing, pointing toward the horizon. Their faces were a blur of worlds: scarred soldiers, scientists in lab coats, children clutching stuffed toys, all drawn here the same way I was. The Wanderers. A voice rose above the hum, strong, commanding. "Welcome to the anchor." The crowd parted to reveal a woman, tall, wrapped in a black coat, hair silver like threads of moonlight. Her eyes scanned the assembly with sharp precision, and when they landed on me, something flickered in her gaze. Recognition, maybe even relief. "You've all felt it," she said. "The breaking, the collapsing. Every universe is tethered here, to this place. And every fracture leads back to this plane. This is where it began, and this is where it ends." Murmurs rippled through the Wanderers. Some nodded in agreement. Others shook their heads in fear. The woman raised a hand. "The anchor is unstable. The universes are colliding. Soon, there will be nothing left unless we act." "Destroy it," a man shouted from the crowd. His voice trembled with anger. "End it before it consumes us all." "No," another argued. "The anchor is the only thing keeping the multiverse alive. Destroy it and everything dies." The assembly erupted, voices clashing. Fear and fury breaking loose. I stood frozen, clutching my journal, until a hand gripped my shoulder. The man in the gray coat, the one who had first warned me. His face was grim, but his eyes burned with urgency. "Do you see now?" he said. "This is the choice. Save the anchor and risk collapse, or destroy it and end everything at once. There's no middle ground." I shook my head, panic rising. "I don't belong here. I didn't choose this." He leaned closer, his voice a whisper only I could hear. "It's not about choice. It's about design. You're the keystone, Alara. The anchor responds to you." The words hit me like a physical blow. Before I could speak, the ground shuddered. Cracks split the white plain, jagged fissures spilling darkness. Through them I glimpsed flashes of other worlds, burning cities, oceans boiling, stars collapsing. And then I heard it. A voice, familiar. "Ilara." I spun. Mara was there, not the Mara who ignored me, not the Mara who screamed as the world split. This one glowed faintly at the edges, like she was stitched together from light and memory. She ran toward me, tears streaming down her face. "Listen to me. Whatever you decide here, it decides everything. My world, your world, all of them. Don't let them use you." I staggered back, shaking my head. "I don't know what to do." The Wanderers surged closer, their voices colliding into a storm. "Preserve it. Destroy it. She's the key. She must decide." The woman with silver hair raised her hands, silencing the crowd. Her eyes pinned me, unyielding. "Ilara Solis," she said, speaking my name like a verdict. "The anchor is yours. Choose." The plain cracked wider. Universes bled together in the gaps. Infinite reflections of myself, infinite versions of Mara, all of them watching, all of them waiting. My hands shook as I clutched the journal to my chest. The words I had written blurred, but one phrase stood out as if glowing from the page. "You are not alone." And for the first time,
I realized it wasn't a warning. It was a promise. The plane trembled, demanding my choice. The plane quaked beneath my feet. Cracks split wider, spilling fragments of other realities into the anchor, like shards of broken glass. I saw endless versions of myself flicker through the fissures, some screaming, some silent, some already fading into nothing. The wanderers circled closer, their shouts cutting like blades. "Save it! Destroy it! She's the keystone! She decides!" Mara gripped my hand. Her touch was warm, real, grounding me against the chaos. Her eyes searched mine, fierce and pleading. "You don't have to listen to them," she whispered. "The anchor doesn't belong to them. It belongs to you." "But if I choose wrong," my voice broke. "Billions of lives, Mara. Entire universes. How am I supposed to decide that?" Her fingers tightened around mine. "Not with your fear, with your heart." The plane shuddered again. A column of light erupted at the center, pulsing, alive. The anchor. It felt ancient and new all at once, like the heartbeat of creation itself. The wanderers cried out, shielding their eyes. The man in the gray coat seized my arm. "If you preserve it, the multiverse collapses in chaos. If you destroy it, at least the suffering ends cleanly. Don't let your weakness doom us all." Mara pulled me back. "And if she destroys it, everything that ever was, every world, every version of us, gone. Forever." I couldn't breathe. My chest heaved as if the weight of infinity was crushing me. I opened my journal with shaking hands. My notes blurred, my own handwriting bleeding together. Trees, books, faces, equations. But at the bottom of the last page, a message burned clear. "You are not alone." Not a warning, not fear, a truth. I closed my eyes and listened. Beneath the chaos, beneath the voices and the cracking world, I heard them. Not just the wanderers, not just Mara, but all of them. Every version of me scattered across infinite universes. Every life I had lived, every mistake, every joy. A chorus of selves, bound together by something deeper than choice. Love, memory, connection. I stepped toward the column of light. The wanderers fell silent, watching. I pressed my journal into Mara's hands. "If I don't come back, remember me. Not in all the ways I could have been. Just me." Her eyes filled with tears. "Elora." "I'm not running anymore," I whispered. And then I stepped into the light. It consumed me. Fire and ice, memory and possibility. Every path I had ever walked unraveling and reweaving at once. I felt myself split into 1,000 Elaras. Then 10,000. Then too many to name. For a moment, I was infinite. And then I chose. Not to preserve the anchor, not to destroy it, but to stabilize one path, one universe, one thread of the endless tapestry. The rest dissolved, folding back into silence. The weight lifted. When I opened my eyes, I was back in my apartment. The willow tree brushed my balcony. My books were stacked in their usual chaotic colors. The coffee stains on Wrinkle in Time were dark and permanent, and Mara's laughter drifted from the kitchen. I ran to her. She turned, alive, real, smiling as if she had always been here. "Elara, you look like you've seen a ghost." I pulled her into my arms, clinging to her with everything I had. "Not a ghost," I whispered. "Not anymore." For the first time in years, the world had color. Not infinite worlds, not infinite choices, just one. And that was enough. Sometimes, late at night, I feel the hum of the anchor in my chest. A reminder of what I carried, what I chose. Maybe the multiverse still exists, out there in the fractures. Maybe other versions of me are still wandering. But this is my world, my path, and I will live it fully.